It's a mailbag Thursday this week as we play over under with some numbers from last year and discuss the biggest weaknesses for the Braves entering the 2022 season, plus questions on Vaughn Grissom, William Contreras, Kenley Jansen, and Waskari Noah. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Lockedon Braves, brought to you by the Lockedon Podcast Network, where we are talking about your favorite teams every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball and check out my bio there to see where I am covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves in written form over at tomahawktake.com. Also, please make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at lockdown_Braves. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. We post episodes daily, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and we are free and available on all platforms. We are doing a mailbag Thursday this week as I have a special podcast that I think is going to be released on Friday. You got some big news coming to the network, so plan on recording that on Friday with a special guest and should be a lot of fun. So, we're going to be doing that either Friday or sometime over the weekend. So, wanted to go ahead and get in your Twitter questions because this will be the last mailbag before opening day. As next week we'll be doing basically all preview episodes and getting ready for the season. We'll do more mailbags during the season, obviously, but wanted to give you a chance to get any final questions in before the season starts. And we got a lot of great questions. So, as always, thank you so much for sending those in. I'm going to try and get to all of those on today's podcast. And our first question comes from more run support. He says, can you give us some over-unders for this season compared to last season? And, it's a pretty broad topic, so I picked some out there that I thought were interesting. Austin Riley, 33 home runs. I'm going to take the over. I think his average could go down a good bit this year, but I think he gets 35, maybe even more home runs this season. He is hitting the ball really hard in spring training. Can't always take what's happening in spring training is what's going to happen in the season, but I think he goes over 33 home runs. Ozzie Albies, 310 on base percentage. I really hope it's going to be over. So I'm going to take the over on 310 OBP for Ozzie Albies. Dansby Swanson, 248 average. I'm going to take the over there as well. As you know, I'm predicting a pretty big year for Dansby Swanson. I think he hits 270 this year. So I'm definitely going over on 248 from last year. Matt Olson, 39 home runs. I'm going to take the over. Look, where he was playing in Oakland, that's not an easy ballpark to hit home runs in. He should have a much easier time hitting home runs in Truist Park, getting balls into the chop house there. So I'm going to say he gets over 40 home runs this season with the Braves. Adam Duvall, 113 RBI. I'm going to take the under. Look, if Adam Duvall gets over 100 RBI again, that would just be incredible. And that's no shot at Adam Duvall. It was just, that's a high number for anybody. I just don't see him getting that again. I mean, look, every time he hit a home run last year, 2 runners were on base. Would love to see that happen again, but I'm going to take the under on Adam Duvall, 113 RBI. On the pitching side, Ian Anderson, 128 in the third innings pitched. I'm going to take the over. I think Ian Anderson gets to 150 innings pitched this year. I think he has the potential to take a big step forward despite what happened in the game on Wednesday, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Max Fried, 3.04 ERA. I'm going to take the under. I think Max Fried has a Cy Young type season. I think he has an ERA in the 2.7s range. So I'm going to say he has an ERA under 3 in the upcoming season. And then another under, I'll take Charlie Morton under 185.2 innings pitched. I think the Braves will be a little bit cautious with him, and I think they'll kind of monitor his innings as well as everybody else. And again, I think they could go to a 6-man rotation at some point. if all these young guys, continue to pitch like they have in spring training and pitch like we know they can. So I'm going to take the under on Charlie Morton innings pitched. Next question comes from Aiden Shaw. It says, what version of Kenley Jansen are the Braves getting this season? And I think they're getting one of the best relievers in baseball. I know he's 34 years old. The increased walk rate scares me. That was really bad last year, but you look at everything else. I mean, there's no indication that he is starting to fall off. Now, his numbers likely won't be as good as they were last year, but I'd be surprised if he had an ERA over 3.3. He's never had a whip higher than 1.15. He's been more so around one. In fact, his career whip is under one, which is just incredible. Other than the COVID shortened season, he's had at least 33 saves in every season since 2014. So, yes, at some point, age will catch up with him, but nothing from last year indicates he'll take a huge step back in 2022. Outside of the high walk rate, I see no reason to think that Kenley Jansen still won't be one of the best relievers in all of baseball in 2022. And another question coming from VT Murdoch says, what are your thoughts on Vaughn Grissom? What does he have to do to improve on to make the Braves believe he can replace Dansby in the near future? Or is there a shortstop in the Braves organization who can replace Dansby in 2023? I don't know that there's a shortstop in the system that can replace him in 2023. Braden Shoemake would be the closest, and he'd have to have a tremendous turnaround in 2022 for that to happen. Vaughn Grissom has a chance. It depends on how aggressive the Braves are with him in 2022. Talked about that on here before. If they start him out in Double A, then I think they have visions of him potentially having a chance to take over the shortstop role next season. I think that would still be a stretch. He's only played 12 games at high A, but again, he made a lot of noise in spring training. Obviously, a great year in 2021. He does need to work on his defense, and there was an article out there in the Athletic that talking about that he's been working even with Dansby, trying to improve on his defense. That is the one thing that needs to come along in order for him to stick at that shortstop position. But the hit tool is there. The bat to ball skills are there. Those are pretty obvious. It's whether or not he improves enough defensively to stick at shortstop at the major league level. So whether or not he can be ready for that next year, I don't know. That could be a lot to ask on a team that's ready to win a World Series, but 2024 for sure, definitely. I think Grissom would have a chance to do that, to take over that shortstop role. Maybe you kind of ease him into it next year. Have a veteran alongside with him. Orlando Arcia could fill that role. Maybe you sign another veteran shortstop in the free agent market next offseason to kind of help transition him into that. But Grissom would be the one right now who looks the most capable of taking over at shortstop in the future if Dansby's no longer going to be around. All right, take a quick break and then we'll come back and answer some more of your Twitter questions. After months of playing, college basketball has determined the top teams for the Final Four and will determine this year's national champion this coming week. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, you name it, BetOnline remains the best spot for all your latest sports developments, including podcasts and reviews for all the leagues this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information needs, including live betting in your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So our next question here comes from Chris Shaffy on Twitter. It says, will William Contreras be on the opening day roster? And a good question, especially with the expanded rosters. There's a chance that Brian Snitker wants to keep a third catcher around. Most likely, those extra spots will be used on pitching. But I mean, I could see, the reason to want to keep Contreras around. You could keep him, or you could put him in the DH spot. Again, have him there as another catcher, a third catcher. I kind of doubt it. I think they want to get him down to AAA and continue to have him working on, playing in right field, playing in the outfield, finding a position where he can get more playing time because he has so much pop in that bat that, they want to try to get his bat in the lineup. It's just where can he do that defensively? And I think the outfield's another possibility for that. DH could be a possibility for that down the road. Of course, Ozuna's going to be stuck in that spot for the next 2 or 3 years. So that's why I think Contreras will not start the season on the opening day roster, but it would not surprise me if he does. Like I said, just for the simple fact that it gives you a potential third catcher on the roster, and he's a good bat off the bench as well. All right, next comes from Wendy Jr. 10. He said, between Enoa, Davidson, and Wright, I am least worried about Enoa, and I think he has 3, maybe 2 potential, and that's a strong maybe potential, figuring out where he could fit into the rotation. Why does everyone hate on Enoa? And again, a very good question. I myself have found, I wouldn't say hate towards Enoa, but doubting, I guess, is probably the better word to say. And I think the reason for that is that he has 2 primary pitches. I mean, he's primary fastball and slider, and it's really hard to get through a rotation 2 or 3 times with 2 pitches. Now, he did it last year for a long stretch. Was it not long enough for the rest of the league to catch up to him? I don't know. Or are his 2 pitches just that good? And he really is just that good of a pitcher, and he can be in the rotation for a long time. I hope so. But to answer your question, that's why a lot of people just doubt him, is because he is primarily a 2 pitch pitcher, and it's hard for a starter to consistently get results and success at the major league level when you're only primarily using 2 pitches. So that's the only reason people, again, I would say doubt. I wouldn't say hate is the right word, but I would just say people like even myself doubt that he's able to stick in a rotation long term because he only has those 2 pitches primarily. And they are good pitches, and he succeeded with them last year. So again, I hope he can. And then also from 1D Junior 10 says, do you think Newcomb, Tukey, and prospects like them at the deadline if needed, or do we keep them on the possibility that they figure it out? I've been saying for a while, I think Sean Newcomb and Tukey Toussaint just need a change of scenery. I think they are definitely trade deadline candidates, as you suggest here. Maybe Tukey gets another shot in the rotation. I don't know what they're doing with Sean Newcomb. I don't know. I kind of feel just bad for the guy at this point. His career has just kind of been dwindling away with the Braves. I mean, he hasn't earned it. I mean, he hasn't. I mean, he's had some opportunities, but I feel like he should have been given another chance somewhere else, way before this. So, and he's out of options. So I don't know what they're going to do with Sean Newcomb. You can't, again, he's out of options. You can't just send him back down. But I think they are both trade candidates, and I think both would really benefit from a change of scenery. But I think Tukey will get one more shot at it to be in the rotation. But yeah, if it comes to the deadline, I think Newcomb and Tukey both will be prime trade deadline candidates for a team, looking for a pitcher with potential upside. I think they can both, have some value in that, not in a major deal, but maybe making a minor upgrade to the bench or bullpen. Carl Sanford asked about the weaknesses on this team. Says, I think it's our defense in the outfield. We don't want Acuna in center, and Duvall is good, but he's not a center fielder for a full year and utility help. I'm hoping one of the young guys solidify as the 4th and 5th starter. So I'm right there with you, Carl. These have been, my questions, my weaknesses that I've been pointing out for the Braves. I worry about the outfield defense. Love Adam Duvall in a corner spot where he is a Gold Glover. He's not in center field, and he's going to make the plays in center field. His range is just limited. But I mean, he'll make the plays in center field that, are in his range for sure. I don't really worry about that. It's just his range is limited in center field. He's much better in right field or in a corner spot. So I do worry about the outfield defense. Eddie Rosario is he is an adventure out there. We know Marcell Ozuna, not exactly the best out there either. If he's going to be playing in the field, even Alex Dickerson, he could be playing in the field against righties early on in the season, especially. He's not a great defensive player. Guillermo Heredia is solid. I think you could see some combinations of he and Adam Duvall out there at times, especially late in games, to help defensively. But yeah, the outfield defense worries me. I think that could be a weakness. Nothing like what the Phillies are throwing out there, but still a weakness nonetheless. Always worry about bench depth. What if a big injury happens? How are you going to fill that spot? But that's a concern for most team. And yeah, I feel confident that at least one young starter is going to step up in the rotation for that fourth or fifth spot. Whether that's Wright or Inoa, maybe Tucker Davidson, but I think it's either Wright or Inoa. I think one of them will step up and solidify a spot in the starting rotation. But those are the weaknesses. Those are the question marks for the Braves coming in to this season. ASU family fan says, why hasn't pitching been locked up yet? Olson is here for 6 hours and has an extension. Why aren't the Braves taking care of their own? Fried, Riley, Anderson, Alex Anthopoulos only worried about his guys. I think this is stemming from some frustration out of an article that Ken Rosenthal wrote talking about, maybe some clubhouse issues with the fact that some of these players are going to arbitration over pennies on the dollar, what it seems like, and yet Matt Olson gets the biggest contract in Braves history. And I get that, I understand that. I think that's a little overblown, but look, I said it when they traded for Matt Olson. That deal only makes sense if you lock him up. So I mean, that's something that had to get done. It had to get done right then. You don't have to lock up Max Fried right now. You don't have to lock up Austin Riley right now. You have them under contract for a guaranteed 3 more seasons. Ian Anderson even longer than that, 4 more seasons. So you don't have to lock up those guys right now. It'd be great if they did, although I'm a little skeptical of locking up starting pitchers. I mean, they can be so fragile, and you tear a UCL, you're out for pretty much 2 seasons, and you're on the hook for that money. So I'm not really for giving extensions to starting pitchers. Riley, I think they probably want to see him, repeat his 2021 performance and then talk about extensions next offseason. That can be risky as well. What if he comes out and puts out another MVP type performance? So again, I don't really buy into that argument that Alex Anthopoulos isn't worrying about his own. Extending Matt Olson with the prospects they gave up, that had to get done, and it needed to get done then. You don't have to do that with Fried and Riley and Anderson right now. Those conversations can take place next offseason or even the offseason after that. Then another question from VT Murdoch. He says, could you compare how Kyle Wright has pitched in previous regular seasons and minor league starts to his World Series start? What does he have to do to remain in the rotation? Does he try to use too many of his pitches in the majors? And I'm glad you asked this question. And look, the issue with Kyle Wright all along has just been confidence, and it's been trusting his stuff. The stuff is there. It's just, and it's a mental thing, and I get it, but flipping that switch from the minors to the majors and realizing your stuff is still good enough to get out major league hitters. And I really just think it's a confidence thing with Kyle Wright. It's why I'm so high on him having a big season, because he did it on the biggest stage. Hopefully now he has the confidence to know he can trust his stuff. But you talked about it, particular pitch. What does he have to do? It's that sinker, and it's trusting that sinker in the zone. It's getting swings on that sinker, and making sure that, he's not missing it out over the middle of the plate, that it's diving to the edges, and that players or hitters are getting on top of it, and he's creating weak contact. I mean, you go watch that World Series start, and I actually just looked at this recently. I think he got 10 outs on that sinker, in 4 2/3 innings. So, I mean, that's the pitch for him. If he has it working, he's trusting it, he's throwing it in the zone, and he's getting weak contact off of it, then I have all the confidence in the world that Kyle Wright can stick in a big league rotation. But I think more than anything, it's just a mental game with Kyle Wright, and knowing that his stuff is good enough to get out major league hitters. And I think sometimes he tries to be too fine with his pitches and he misses, gets behind in counts, and hitters tee off on that. I mean, that's what major league hitters are going to do. So it's all about just having confidence in his pitches, throwing that sinker in the zone, and just making sure that hitters aren't are getting on top of it, and that he's not getting behind in count, so that he has to throw it over the heart of the plate. I mean, it's really just that simple for Kyle Wright. I say it's that simple, like anybody could do it, but I really just think it's mostly a mental game. It's just him having the confidence to trust that sinker in the zone. So some great questions. Appreciate you all sending those in. Next, I want to talk about some news from Wednesday, some game notes as well, and we have an opening day starter announced. I'll tell you who that is next. So Max Fried was named the opening day starter for the Atlanta Braves. And again, no surprise here. I think he deserves it. He pitched game 6 last year. He's the ace of this staff. It should be Max Fried. So he gets the opening day start, which means Charlie Morton likely starts game 2 and Ian Anderson behind him in game 3. And then we'll see what happens from there. I would guess it'll be some combination of Kyle Wright and Huascar Ynoa in games 4 and 5. Kyle Muller will get the start on Thursday as he tries to earn a rotation spot. So he will get the start on Thursday. Guillermo Heredia was hitting the hand during Wednesday's game. Braves had several players hit on Wednesday, but Heredia had to leave the game. Seems to be okay. Snicker said after the game, it just stung and didn't look like any damage was done. So that is certainly good news there. We talked about the center field position for the Braves. Acuna won't be available there for a while, and who knows if he will be or should be. But right now it's Adam Duvall and Guillermo Heredia for center field. So really need Heredia there as insurance for center field with the Braves. So glad it looks like he's okay. Chadwick Tromp was optioned to AAA, and John Nagowski was reassigned to minor league camp. So the roster is down to 40 with 12 more cuts to go. So things are getting close. We're a week away from opening day. And then from Wednesday's game, Ian Anderson struggled. He couldn't get out of the first inning. He came back out in the second, and then he only recorded 1 out in the third inning before getting pulled. Overall, he threw 2 innings, gave up 7 hits, 3 walks, 6 earned runs, a couple of home runs. Did have 4 strikeouts. 4 of his 6 outs were strikeouts. He had some funny spring training stuff happen as well. There's a pop-up, between home plate and first base that just dropped somehow. I don't know how Matt Olson didn't get to it or if there was some wind playing tricks on it, but still, either way, just it was not a pretty start for Ian Anderson. Really the first time this spring that a Braves starter has just had a terrible outing. So we're just going to chalk that up to fluke and say that is not the Ian Anderson we're going to get going forward. It was a very, very good Red Sox lineup. I will say that Red Sox lineup is very good, and he faced their main squad there. But still, I'm expecting Ian Anderson to be just fine, and that'll be just a blip on the radar. Go ahead and get it out of the way now so that you don't have that start in the regular season. Travis d'Arnaud, Adam Duvall, and Alex Dickerson all homered in the 5th inning. Big game for Alex Dickerson as he looks to earn that bench spot, which I think he's going to get. He also had a deep sac fly in this game as well. So good game for Alex Dickerson. Again, I think he's pretty much a lock to be on the roster. You got to have another left-handed bat there. So I think he's pretty much guaranteed a spot, but good to see him performing well to earn that spot. And then Colin McHugh made his spring debut and pitched a perfect inning. So those are your game notes from Wednesday. Like I said, Kyle Muller will be on the mound Thursday, and we are 1 week away from opening day. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast and subscribe to us on YouTube. And we will talk to you next time.